Once you begin to travel, the road will always call you. It leads from home to the world full of charm and mystery. According to medieval sources from Chinese, Arabian, Persian and other writers of the pre-Islamic period, that is up to the 8th and 9th century AD, in the territory occupied by the modern states of Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan, Tadjikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, the Buddhism, which was the official religion of the Kushan Empire, had been widely adopted. These observations have since been confirmed by interesting archaeological research begun in the 1920s and 1930s by Soviet scientists. In almost all of the modern states, and Uzbekistan and Tajikistan in particular, archaeological excavations have uncovered ancient Buddhist buildings in the form of temples, monasteries and stupas, as well as wall paintings, sculptures and numerous fragmentary remains. It is worth noting that in the territory of southern Uzbekistan and the Surkhandarya area in particular, with its rich Buddhist heritage, the unique archaeological research carried out by Uzbek scientists together with other scientists from Japan, Russia, Germany and elsewhere actively continues. The contribution to the science and the history of Uzbekistan made by Professor Kato from Japan, the academician Ortveladze, Professor Pedaev and many others has without doubt been invaluable. Buddhism in Central Asia had been known since the times of great ruler Ashoka in the 3rd century BC, and it had become established in Central Asia by the 1st century BC and the beginning of the Common Era. There was a marked blossoming of Buddhism during the Great Kushan Empire in the 1st, 3rd centuries of the Common Era, which reached its peak during the reign of the Emperor Kanishka. This period has been referred to as the Second Golden Age of Buddhism. The Great Kushan Empire was composed of northern Bactria, the south of present-day Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and almost the entire territory of modern Afghanistan, along with northern parts of Pakistan and India. The spread of Buddhism from India to Central Asia was facilitated by the trade routes that connect these countries. At the same time, it should be noted that by virtue of Sogdian and Bactrian merchants, and more especially missionaries and preachers, the philosophical and religious teachings of the Mahayana from the territory of Bactria and Sogdiana, present-day Uzbekistan, spread to China in the 1st century, Korea in the 4th century, and had reached Japan by the 2nd quarter of the 6th century. During the period of flowering, the Kushan Empire was a centralized state of rich ethnic and cultural diversity. This era was marked by highly developed agriculture, craft, financial interaction, material and artistic cultures, as well as the growth of towns and settlements with vibrant trade connections along the Great Silk Road. I happened to visit the Surkhandarya region of Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and so I present to you the unique heritage of Buddhism in this part of Central Asia. This represents only a small aspect of the great heritage of these states. The Surkhandarya region is located in the south of Uzbekistan on the right bank of the Amudarya river. Buddhism was widely adopted in this area and in the old city of Termes in particular. Termes, which according to the ancient sources was known as Tarmita during the Kushan Empire, was actually a Buddhist city. This can be explained by the location of Termes at the crossing point of the Amudarya river, where it occupied the geographical junction of caravan routes connecting north and south, east and west. As a result of this, Termes became a highly developed center of spiritual culture and the arts, owing to the active cooperation and mutual enrichment of the local culture with that of India and the nomads, as well as that of the Iranian and Greco-Roman worlds. Well, now, let's acquaint ourselves with the unique monuments of ancient antique period of Central Asia, which bear facts and evidences, riddles and assumptions, wisdom and mystery from the depths of history. As noted by an unfortunately unknown English writer, it is not acceptable that clock and calendar overshadow the fact that every moment of life is miracle and mystery. The outstanding discovery of ancient Buddhist monument in the territory of Surkhandarya made in 20th century was sensational and unique, and has certainly made a huge contribution to the world history and culture. Air Town. The first Buddhist object on the territory of Uzbekistan was discovered quite accidentally in 1932, when a bodyguard named Ivan Rislov was sailing on the Amudarya river and saw a white slab near the shore. It was retrieved from the bottom of the river and taken to Termes. In the end, it turned out to be one of the famous airtime slabs of white limestone, dating from the 1st or 2nd century AD. It depicts a man with a double-sided Indian drum, a woman with a lute, and a woman with a harp among countless leaves. In the years that followed, a survey of the area and its archaeological sites produced 7 slabs showing images of 2 musicians with flute and cymbals, as well as figures carrying floral garlands. It is supposed that these slabs took the form of friezes, which decorated the walls of the former monastery, of which only ruins remain. The alternation of busts and countless leaves is a characteristic feature of Hellenistic art which had been circulated in Bactria. These friezes are undoubtedly considered the best examples of stone sculpture from the Kushan era. Scientists have expressed an assumption that the musicians of the airtime frieze are generating the 5 sacred sounds of Buddhism, which should fill the ears of Buddha with divine harmony, while the gift carriers ensure that his final journey is bespread with flowers. The plot of the frieze apparently is associated with Parinirvana Jataka, the legend of the Great Death. According to the legend, at the time of the departure of Buddha Gautama to Parinirvana, the celestial spirits engaged in funeral rites and flowers fell to the earth. Devas of heaven rained lily flowers. The music sounded in heaven. Next to these reliefs was found the lower part of the stone stela, showing, judging by the Hellenistic clothes, a man and a woman. The Bactrian inscription carved on the pedestal refers to the construction and repair of Malizo, that is the citadel and the temple of Bagolago in it. Nowadays, unfortunately, these monuments, or rather the ruins of the Buddhist complex, have not survived. As this was the site where the strategic Friendship Bridge was built across the Amudarya river to the Afghan shore at Hayraton. All 8 of the famous airtime slabs are now exhibited at the Hermitage in the eastern section, and replicas of them are displayed in the State Museum of History of Uzbekistan in Tashkent. Dalverzinte Park, 110 kilometers to the northeast of Termes, near the city of Shurchi, saw the discovery of another great archaeological monument of the Kushan state, the ancient settlement of Dalverzinte Park. Surprisingly, it was also discovered accidentally. In the early spring of 1967, a local bulldozer driver found chunks of plaster sculptures. He reported what he had found to the museum at Termes. Although, as was very concisely and wisely said by the psychologist Wayne Dyer, in the perfect universe there are no accidents. So, it is probable that the finding of pieces of plaster sculpture was not accidental. Archaeologists soon arrived at the scene and were simply shocked by the sight of many fragments of ancient sculpture scattered over the huge area. So began the excavations that opened up many amazing archaeological sites. Thus, the ancient settlement of Dalverzintepe occupies an area of more than 36 hectares and is surrounded by a defensive wall with a length of 2.5 kilometers and with a thickness of up to 10 meters, behind which was a deep moat. In Dalverzintepe, two Buddhist complexes were found: a monastery located in the heart of the city and a suburban sanctuary dated to the 1st-3rd centuries AD. The sanctuary had a rectangular shape with a stupa in the center. It was surrounded on the three sides by buildings which were richly decorated with gypsum mixed sculpture. One of these is the remains of a large sculpture of Buddha. The most interesting sculpture found here was the head of a Kushan prince, dated to the 2nd century AD. The features of his face are noble and aristocratic. On his head is a high cone-shaped headdress with plugs, which may have been decked with golden discs. The urban monastery is dated to the 2nd-3rd century AD. A large number of clay plaster sculptures executed in the Gandhar style were also found during excavations here. This included large statues of Buddha, bodhisattvas, noble men and women, as well as other Buddhist characters. Elements of a Gandhara culture are also present in the architectural details: attic bases of columns, acanthus leaves in the folds of the clothes on sculptural characters, and etc. In 1972, a very important event occurred during the Dalverzintepe excavations: the discovery of golden treasure in the house of wealthy citizen weighing a total of 36 kilograms. The treasure comprised jewelry of gold, silver, and precious stones, as well as ivory chess pieces. The archaeological excavations and priceless discoveries relating to Indo-Buddhist and Hellenistic cultures suggest that there was a city here, that the city of Dalverzintepe was once the capital of the Kushan Empire, and that the Great Silk Road passed through the city. Excavations have been conducted here for over 40 years, yet there are still many unexcavated mounds over the west side and many secrets still buried underground. Karatepa. In the territory of Old Termes, on the right bank of Amudarya, there rises a three-headed hill which the locals call Karatepa, meaning Black Hill. The words of the great philosopher Avicenna could be addressed to the uniquely mysterious hill of Karatepa. Did not you, disappearing with the time, became the secret, and bequeath this secret to reveal the past? Karatepa is a monumental Buddhist cult center of concave type, dating from 1st-3rd century AD. It consists of several temple monastery complexes, as well as a cave site located in the hills and land-based buildings. The temple complex at Karatepa is one of the most ancient surviving Buddhist cave monasteries. Among all of the Buddhist sites in Central Asia, Karatepa occupies a special place because it is the only Buddhist monument which, along with land-based buildings, has a cave complex. It is functionally different from other monastery complexes, as indicated by the sophisticated composition of the buildings and their large size. It became much richer than other Buddhist sites, as revealed by the abundance and variety of sculptures and epigraphic findings, there are various inscriptions on clay, stone, sculpture, ware. These artifacts has revealed details of the timescale relating to the spread of Buddhism into the south of Central Asia and the features of its development in this region. They have also allowed analysis of Bactrian cultural contacts with Buddhist art centers, in particular with the Gandhara school. All of this has made it possible to define the role of Termes in the further spread of Buddhism to the western, then eastern areas of China. The huge complex consists of cells for monks, rooms for ceremonial rituals, and an assembly hall. The largest part of the complex is the Norse monastery of Karatepa, which really impresses with its size. In the middle of the complex there is a monumental stupa, the base of which has survived. The corners of the stupa are strictly aligned with the 4 cardinal points. In the center of the monastic part of the complex is a huge square yard. There are columns of large size made of white limestone which give a direct indication of the monumental size of the former building. This country yard was surrounded on all sides by a high corridor, beyond which were monastic cells. The inner temple country yard were paved with brick slabs. According to archaeologists, the cave complex of Karatepa consists of cells in 3 tiers. Upon entering the cells, stone steps led down under the earthen dome, which had a diameter of about 5 meters. In underground rooms, archaeologists found fragments of statues of Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, figures of birds and animals, and wall paintings, amongst which there is one of the most ancient pictorial images of Buddha surrounded by monks. There are also sculptures of donors, devotees, and bodhisattvas. The cells contain preserved coins minted during the reign of Kanishka I and the Sassanid rulers. The Karatepa complex consisted of not only monasteries but several stupas and hostel vihara, which served as shelters for the numerous pilgrims. The magnificent sculptures and fine architectural details were executed by the Kushan Bactrian artistic school. Within the walls of the buildings there were niches of different size for placing sculpture. Over the last decade, studies of this site have been maintained jointly by Uzbek and Japanese archaeologists. Many more interesting and mysterious discoveries await us ahead. Fayaz-Tepa. We can dedicate the wonderful words of the great Uzbek writer Alisher Navoiy to the gorgeous monument of Buddhist complex at Fayaz-Tepa, which after restoration and conservation has found a new and glorious life. As morning sprinkles handfuls of silver, you pour rays of sunshine for the good of all, laughing as morning is steering. Circling like the sun, you burn for all. This remarkable Buddhist complex, dating from the 2nd century AD, is located 1 kilometer to the north of Karatepa. It was discovered in 1968 and excavations were conducted in 1970s. In 2000, under the protection of UNESCO, with financial support from the Japanese Cultural Foundation, restoration and preservation began. Today it appears in a new and elegant form, a bright light under the rays of the sun. The buildings of Fayaz-Tepa have a rectangular form with a length of 170 meters and a width of 34 meters. The complex is composed of 3 sections, including a utility room for the monks and pilgrims, the main monastery situated in the center, and a section in which the monks' cells and altar were located. The stupa was located in the northern part of the complex. The central part of the monastery has a rectangular country yard with a colonnade on the extant ancient stone bases. Around the perimeter of the yard there are 20 rooms with access to the Ivan. In the utility area, the kitchens remained. There are still fireplaces for cooking and the remnants of tandoor ovens for baking bread. Perfectly carried out restoration work provides good preservation of the surviving walls on the one hand, and the ability to see the original ancient walls composed of mud bricks on the other. Next to the monastery is a huge stupa, over which a dome has been built for its preservation. There is a space between the dome and the stupa, so for those wishing to examine the original stupa, it is possible to get inside, move around and touch the stupa. The walls of the Ivan and sanctuaries were rich in paintings, some of which have survived. One of the sanctuary walls shows the figures of 9 men, of which only the lower part remains. Experts suggest that the Kushan king Kanishka was depicted in the center. The walls of the sanctuary also show images of Buddha, Donatrius, and Alexander the Great. There are also many sculptures of Buddha and Bodhisattvas made from a mix of clay, gypsum and white limestone in this complex. The unique value of Fayaz Tepe is a perfectly preserved white limestone sculpture depicting Buddha under the sacred Bodhi tree with 2 monks. This sculpture is called a triad. It is now displayed in the State Museum of History of Uzbekistan in Tashkent. This representation of Buddha gives rise to endless admiration with its calm dignity and sense of spiritual enlightenment. In my experience, it exerts a powerful energy force as you don't want to leave it. A sense of wonder is also inspired by the well-preserved clay sculpture of a standing bodhisattva. The right hand is raised, on the palm is a depiction of the wheel of life, and on the fingertips, Gamadion, a symbol of life, light and goodness. The priceless archaeological findings at Fayaz Tepe are executed in the sculptural style of the Kanhar school combined with Greco-Buddhist art. Ajna Tepe, Tadjikistan. Ajna Tepe was discovered in 1947. It is located in the valley of Rio Vaksh in the south of modern Tajikistan, where it merges with Panch River and gives rise to the great Amudarya River. The word Ajna Tepe means Devil's Hill. This is one of the most famous Buddhist monasteries in Central Asia. It was built in the 7th century and was unfortunately destroyed by the Arabs in the 8th century. There is a belief that having destroyed the temple, the Arabs in particular called this place the Devil's Hill, so that nobody would visit the shrine. However, people continue to go and worship the destroyed shrine secretly. Excavations revealed that building was divided into 2 parts and that each of them had a different function. There was a monastery where the monks lived and a sanctuary. In the center of the partly preserved temple complex, judging by the perimeter of the base, was situated a huge stupa. At the center of each of the 4 sides is a flight of steps. The upper part of the dome had been destroyed. The monastery was richly decorated with wall paintings as well as large and small sculptures. Statues and sculptures of Buddha, Bodhisattvas, Devatas, and various deities were made primarily of painted clay and stone. The unique and priceless relic of the Buddhist complex of Ajanatepa is a giant statue of the reclining Buddha in Nirvana. From the Jataka tales and legends of the life of Gautama Buddha, he, anticipating going, told students, "Now, accomplishing my way, I will go to Nirvana, and you will follow the great law. It is your greatest strength. When it is with you, you are protected." He lies on his right side as if in a blissful sleep. The right arm is bent at the elbow and he is resting on a pillow. The left arm is extended along the body and the palm rests on the hip. The sculpture is made of clay. Its total length is 13 meters, the height and 285 meters, and it weighs about 5 tons. Removing the Buddha in Nirvana proved to be very difficult, but scientists and archaeologists found a way to do that. The statue was divided into large pieces, fixed, and so it was able to be transferred to the restoration laboratory at the Institute of History in Dushanbe. In 2001, following completion of the building of the National Museum of Antiquities of Tajikistan, the restored sculpture of Buddha in Nirvana was moved to the museum. The only Nirvana is an eternal rest. This is calm of the soul. And so, only part of our journey into the ancient and mysterious world of Buddhism in Central Asia draws to an end. There are still many interesting, mysterious, and exciting developments to come from the history and culture of this richly blessed land. I would really like to finish this wonderful journey into the past with the wise teaching of Altai. By looking back in time, you will look to the future. By touching the stone, feel the warmth of the sun. By sensing yourself in the universe, you will see a universe in yourself. In the change of day and night, and the rhythm of spring and autumn, youth and maturity, you touch the order and meaning of nature.